Vice President Yemi Osinbajo hosts Yoruba community leaders from the 19 northern states.
Senate confirms 15 of the 16 nominated members for the NDDC board.
UN Food and Agriculture Organization FAO releases a food crisis report for 16 states of Nigeria.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on checkmating political thuggery.
One worrisome aspect of Nigerian politics is the fact that every 4 years, that is every election year, violence, intimidation and thuggery have become common features both during and after elections in the country.
Well, ironically, Kirian, politicians initially come together to discuss peace and the need for a violence-free process. They even signed a peace accord, but that doesn't seem to help. Now, the Nigerian political scene is still plagued with violence in varying degrees. It was even worse during the 2019 general elections that took place in February and March this year.
Very true. You can imagine innocent Nigerians going out on election day with the intention of voting for a candidate that are convinced can change the course of democracy in the state or country, but are unable to do so because of violence, intimidation and thuggery instigated by the opposition. So Kingsley, imagine you are at a polling station and thugs come in and start shooting in the air, obviously with the intention of disrupting the process. How will you react?
Well, that's very simple, Kirian. I will, of course, take cover first and then try to get home as safely and as fast as possible, because my number one priority will be self-preservation, as that is the cause for the value of each of our lives.
Exactly. You see, that's one of the biggest problems in Nigeria's political scene nowadays. Thuggery, scare tactics during campaigns and elections, and even after elections, have become rampant to the extent that many distant Nigerians of integrity who would have made meaningful contributions to the development of the country are usually bullied and scared off by the violence and the thuggery permeating the entire political environment.
Well, the truth is that violence is no longer just limited to the election seasons alone. Now, political thugs now attack members of the opposition at will. And the fact that violence is becoming more vicious and rampant in Nigerian politics is indeed very alarming.
And not only the country's future, Kingsley, the youths who may have been armed and manipulated to threaten and destroy lives and property during electoral periods and thereafter, sometimes are permanently scared and traumatized for years after the event. You know, they end up becoming hooked on life of violence. You know, something you have done for a while has become part of you, and you can't even leave it.
Oh, that's right. Now, but the truth is that most of the violent flashpoints are known, and the campaign against electoral violence and political thuggery in general can be intensified in those areas so that the youth can be guided and not therefore allow themselves to be used for the selfish gains of political sponsors of violence.
And as the country prepares for the Kogi and Bayelsa states elections, how much has been done to prevent political thuggery from rearing its ugly head during these elections? What can be done to checkmate this dark aspect of Nigeria's political landscape, and how can political thuggery be completely eliminated from Nigerian politics?
Well, Kirian, our guests in our conversation segment will seek to provide answers to those questions that you have raised, and indeed more when we, of course, get into that segment. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are broadcasting live from Abuja.
And I'm Kieran. Thank you for joining us this morning on the show. This is another edition of Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, we're going to be showing the complementary segments of the program, which will include newspaper review, business, and others. For now, let's join Musbao Dan Wahab for the morning news. Musbao, it's good to see you.
It's a very good morning, Kieran. Good to see you too. Let's bring you the news. Nigeria is well into the process of diversifying its economy with emphasis on sectors such as agriculture, mining, solid minerals, and manufacturing. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said this when he received the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Nicaragua, Dennis Maconde Colindres, and the Minister of Special Delegation of President for Africa, Middle East, and Arab, Mohamed Farara Lashtar, receiving on behalf of President Muhammadu Buhari a special message from the President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega. Vice President Osinbajo noted that Nigeria and the Republic of Nicaragua share the same view on the need to strengthen existing bilateral relations and expand economic ties. And very similarly, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo received leaders of Yoruba communities in the 19 northern states of the country who came to the presidential villa on solidarity visit.
We Yorubas in the northern part of the country, we believe that this present administration is our administration that backs hope, peace, progress, stability, and oneness together.
From the National Assembly, the Senate has confirmed 15 out of the 16 nominees as members of the Governing Board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. The Senate also confirmed Justice John Teremba as Chief Judge of Federal High Court and Justice Benedict Kenyip as President, Industrial Court of Nigeria.
A lot of work to do. You must make sure that whatever is budgeted is properly, prudently, effectively, and efficiently put to use.
Meanwhile, the executives of the All Progressives Congress, APC, led by its national chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, met with President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, during which the party leadership commended the Senate for its level of cooperation with the executive arm of government so far. The national chairman also observed the bipartisan leadership of the Senate, which has yielded fruit through the cooperation of opposition parties.
And it shows that where you have a clear Senate leadership that has the capacity to engage across party divide, and issues are properly articulated, that people can see that what is at stake is not partisan interest but national interest, it is possible to find common ground, to carry everybody along.
We have a Senate today that is primed right from the start to deliver to Nigerians. We campaigned, we said we will have a Senate that works for Nigeria. This Senate works for Nigeria indeed. I want to appreciate all members of the National Assembly, and I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, you also appreciated our colleagues in opposition, the PDP and the YPP.
Former Edo State Governor Adams Oshiomhole also commended President Muhammadu Buhari for signing the Deep Offshore Amendment Act into law in faraway London, which shows how committed he is to the nation's development. Still at the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to use the Social Investment Program as a platform to initiate a broad-based agricultural policy towards boosting economic growth. This, the House believes, would provide employment to hundreds of thousands of youth in the agricultural sector.
The National Investment Program, with a view to creating the opportunity and possibility of engaging more than 50% of youth population in various agricultural activities.
Now, the health challenges confronting Nigeria's growing population and the need for stakeholders in the health sector to keep strengthening the partnership, where issues discussed are the national dissemination and official launch of the 2018 Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey. Reports at the International Conference Center, Abuja.
We'll make good use of the findings in policy formulation and alignment of our strategies and interventions in the health sector.
And just so you know, there has been a reduction in the number of people facing acute food insecurity in northeastern Nigeria. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) and its food crisis report on 16 states of Nigeria says the number has dropped significantly from 5.2 million in June 2017 to 2.9 million in August 2019.
Improvement has largely been due to the efforts of government and massive intervention of humanitarian communities, without which the situation would have been worsened.
And that's the news beats on the program. This time, join us for more subsequently. Now, how to cleanse Nigerian politics of violence and political thuggery is all for discuss this morning, as Kingsley and Kieran will take you through with the guest after the break.
The new edition of TV Guide is out, exclusively taking a look at the traditional television and new media. Are they comparable or complementary? Media industry players give perspective on the trends, progress, challenges, and the way forward. Find out on this compelling edition of TV Guide. Expository interviews with stars of the team within our space. Becky Madajemo of NTA, Utibe Umore of AIT, Nifemi Oguntai of TVC, and a host of others. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also feature Iya Modina.
I'm the CEO, managing director of Iya Modina Sister Restaurant. I used to serve, shut up your mouth, let me finish.
A TV drama series on NTA. Let's get to meet the characters behind Iya Modina. This edition also presents exciting features on tourism, culture, entertainment, sports, health, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendors near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Helpline Foundation Nigeria and partners present the 3rd Annual African Women Conference AWC 2019, a gathering of experts, institutions, corporate organizations, and individuals promoting the growth, stability, and development of African women, through which various resources available to African women can be channeled towards the sustainable development of the continent.
Keynote speakers: Dame Paul Talin, Ramato Tijani Aliu, Madam Magdala Kupa, Binta Masigarba, Karima Ranim, Ibtisame Azao, Dr. Anissa Nagra, veteran Nollywood actors and actresses.
Theme: Building a Coalition to End Gender Inequality in Africa. Dates: 21st to 23rd November 2019. Venue: Kenzi Menara Palace, Marrakesh, Morocco. For participation and inquiries, visit www.africa-womenconference.org or call +234 806 5388 424. AWC, building an Africa where every woman's potential is fully harnessed. Powered by Helpline Foundation Nigeria, Echoes Africa Initiatives New York, International Center for Diplomacy in Morocco.
Hey, bro, what's up, man? Wait. Sure, son, I want the bicycle.
Enjoy more data than before on Airtel Home Broadband. Get up to 160 gigabytes on routers with 25,000 Naira and 55 gigabytes on Airtel MiFis with 12,000 Naira. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband by
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit 2019 holds on the 6th to the 8th of November 2019. The summit will take place at the Banquet Hall Presidential Villa, Abuja, Nigeria. Theme: Leveraging Diaspora Resources for Economic Growth. sectors: agribusiness, education, training, healthcare, entertainment, sports, hospitality and tourism, infrastructure, real estate, manufacturing, extractive industries, telecommunications, technology and innovation, waste management and environmental remediation, transportation. For registration, visit www.ndis.gov.ng. For participation and sponsorship, please call 090-177-77008, 0817-2244-660. Convened by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission.
An award that has succeeded to pool a galaxy of stars from the north, south, east to the west, and central Africa, and also those that are domiciled beyond the shores of Africa under one roof.
Now it's time for us to take some business stories, and here is our correspondent, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
In terms of doing business, Nigeria has improved immensely, gaining the confidence of investors, even further ensuring that the economy is on the right path. In the anti-corruption forum that took place in Abuja, it was stressed that with the right policies in place, with transparency and accountability in all matters, the necessary and right changes will come to pass and the economy will grow to its full potential. Experts say more job opportunities will present themselves and poverty will be greatly alleviated.
We have corruption tackled or reduced to the barest minimum. We expect to see more investments and investors coming because cost of businesses are usually done and analyzed by will-be investors. So if corruption in whatever form is adding to the expensive nature of doing business in Nigeria, then we will have, of course, lack of interest, and the investors will be going elsewhere where the conditions are more favorable and also less corrupt inclined.
With that, let's take a look at the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
Well, thank you for staying with us up to this moment. Next on the program is newspaper review.
Newspaper reviewer Bayo Tebe is right here with us in the studios for today's review session. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, Bayo, good morning. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, I have the Daily Sun newspaper, and earpiece, that's one beside the nameplate. Minimum wage. Labour sets December 31st deadline for negotiations with governors to stick to agreed structure with federal government. Details can be found on page 6. Lead story says court stops Operation Positive Identification. That's on page 4. And the photograph right there on the front page shows smoke billowing from a plaza following a fire outbreak at Martins Street. That's the popular Balogun market in central Lagos that took place yesterday. Unfortunately, a policeman was said to have lost his life in that incident. Alleged pension scam may now absent in court. Bail application for ruling November 7th. NDDC, Senate and Executive head for showdown, disagree on tenure of interim board members confirmed. Now, Governor Zulum gingers military to action. That's the governor of Borno State, urges troops to take battle to insurgents' enclaves. Details can be found on page 40. Corruption still in system, say SGF, as Secretary of the Government of the Federation, and Sage. Details on page 9. Traditional ruler flees Edo community as angry youth raise palace. That's in Ogun. On the way to Onitsha, they're coming from Benin.
Yeah.
Details on page 12.
That shows that the power belongs to the people.
Well, it's some squabble they're having
exactly.
Over some issues, yes.
All right, let's turn to the Daily Trust newspaper. The Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, from top to bottom, let's begin with this. Boko Haram will not end without adequate equipment and funding, says Lawan. That's on page 4. That Buhari presiding over Nigeria from London, says Oshomole. That's on page 3. 2023, PDP faces hurdles over open ticket. Right, the lead story this morning on the Daily Trust newspaper is a telecoms kick as federal government orders NCC to reduce data cost. With 2 riders to that, they are robbing Nigerians, says the Senate. Reduction in 5 days not possible, says operators. All right, of course, the photo story is that which Kingsley already told you about. And below that, we have Akwa Ibom University sacks 8 lecturers over sexual harassment. Page 6 is where you get the story. Now, Buratai urges media to hold national security sacred. It's on page 8. Court orders military to suspend Operation Positive Identification. The full details will be on page 6 of Daily Trust. Bye.
Well, let's start with the incidences of fire that is beginning to rise now. You know, we are heading towards the dry season, and usually is the season for fire. In Lagos alone, there were 3 fires that were reported. There was one as a Chin factory, where the building, another was at a building in Balogu Market. The third was at Dosumu Market. The fire at the factory for Chin was put out, but the one at Balogu Market was said to have started about 9:30 a.m. and up to 10:30 p.m. the fire was still raging. And the traders who are lamenting their losses are saying that the same fire happened in that area about 2 years ago, and therefore they are calling for adequate fire fighting facility in that Balogu Market area. In fact, at the fire incident, it was Lagos State Fire Service that was supported by the Union Bank fire facility to combat that fire. Oh, apparently they were actually overwhelmed. The other one is the 31st December deadline given by the Joint National Public Sector Negotiation Council to all the 36 governors of Nigeria to pay the minimum wage and the consequential adjustment or face impeachment. This time around, the council, Labour is saying that they will be impeached by Labour if they don't implement the wage. Already, members of the State Council had converged in Abuja, and they have been schooled and trained how to negotiate with state governors. And so when they go back, they will write to their governors and say negotiations time has begun now. And they are saying by 31st of December, they will use the template by the National Income, Salary and Wages for negotiations. And by 31st December, any governor who does not pay will be impeached by Labour.
Now, what is negotiation all about? It has been spelled out what the minimum wage is all about. Many Nigerians would like to understand what this negotiation again between Labour and state governments.
There is negotiations because what has been agreed is the federal salary structure. The state salary structure is not the same with that of the federal. Therefore, it has to be adjusted accordingly by the percentages. That is my understanding of it.
So Labour is threatening to, on their own, impeach the governors.
Yes, that's what they say. They say workers will impeach the governor. How they will do it, I don't know.
Well, I hope that is not by revolution, because, you know, bail conditions can be very tough to meet.
The other one is the operation positive identification. A federal high court in Lagos has ordered a status quo ante. This followed a suit that was filed by Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria. Femi Falana has said the OPI will constrain the constitutional right and liberty of Nigerians, and therefore, in the supporting affidavit, he said that it violates the rights and right of citizens provided for in Section 35 of the Constitution. It also violates Article 6 of African Charter on Human Rights. The OPI was supposed to have started November 1st and to end December 24th. The information available is that it's supposed to be a cordon and search operation, no intrusive roadblocks or checkpoints. However, the operation will be intelligence-based, whereby they will track down kidnappers, bandits, insurgents who have been dispersed from their enclave and are all over the nation. The whole idea is to stimulate attention by security agencies. And it is not, from what they have said, every end of year you have Operation Python Dance, Crocodile Smile, and what have you. The whole episode has been testified to that towards Christmas. There have been a reduction in crime incidents, especially people who revel and go home during Christmas, especially in the southeast. But let's see, we are in an era of democracy, an era of rule of law. The court will hear both parties and take a decision on the situation.
There's this story that Kirian read from the Daily Trust.
Yes.
About the federal government directing the NCC to order a reduction in data cost. I'm sure that we all saw the story relating to the profit announced by profit before tax, yes, if I recall properly or correctly, by one of the telecom operators, that is NTA, almost ₦1 trillion. Yes. ₦1 trillion. Now, this was precisely what happened when GSM kicked off in 2001. You know, until the advent of Glo, both MTN and it was Econet at the time, yes, before they had a number of other name changes and so on and so forth, they were billing per minute. And they said it was difficult or impossible to go per second billing. And you had all kinds of campaigns that were waged at that time, including a boycott of GSM services for one day that was organized, you know, throughout the country. Now, on account of the rise in the use of data, the telecom operators have now moved to fleecing their customers from the cost of data. The cost of data is prohibitive in this country. The same way as you had the high cost of voice calls when GSM was launched in 2001. The arguments they were making then was, oh, the cost of operating in the Nigerian environment is tough, is heavy, they need to roll out and roll out. But they were also announcing humongous profits at that material time. So let them crash the price of data usage in the country. Comparatively, it's excessive.
They have an economic advantage and they don't want to let go. And like he pointed out, it has started right from inception. They said what a per minute charge, anything other than per minute charge was impossible, until another telecom came and said we are doing per second charge. Yes. And overnight, they quickly reverted to per second. This current argument now, the Senate has given them 5 days within which to review their data charges. And they say they can't do that within 5 days. And one worrying thing is that if you buy data and you don't finish using it, it accumulates, but you can't carry it forward. So it's a kind of exploitation of people by the telecoms. And right from the inception, if you recall, when the first telecom company was established, there is a percentage they pay to the NCC as a percentage of over their annual profit. It was humongously about 54 billion they paid. That's right. That is to tell you that the quantum of profit they are making. And a Senate delegation that once visited Turkey was going around telecom facilities, and they were told that the cost of data and telephone services in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world.
There is no doubt about that. But my understanding of this situation is that these people are in business.
Yes.
Right. And yes, their cost is on the high side. Yes. But what I believe ought to have been done before now is to ensure that all telecom operators hook up to Nigeria's own satellites. That way, you can control them. That way, you can talk about low prices of data, because Turkey, for instance, has not less than 5 or more communication satellites in the orbit owned by Turkey. And there's no way you can operate a telecom business in Turkey without hooking up to their own satellite. Now, these people are hooked up to Nilesat, Intelsat, Canadasat, and what have you, and they're paying in dollars. Right, so they don't know. I'm not justifying what I do, but I say that we should.
That argument will be immaterial. I'm sorry to leap in here. It will be immaterial.
It will not be immaterial.
Okay, listen,
it is a business concept.
It's a business concept. In spite of that business concept, the MTN announced a profit the other day of over 800 billion naira. In spite of that, no, listen, please. You know, in 2001, when they started off with their tariff structure, MTN has its parent company in South Africa. The South Africans were saying that, look, the tariff structure for Nigeria was unreasonable. Let's face it, unreasonable.
If you go across Ghana there, the tariff rate is not the same as you have in Nigeria.
Precisely.
In comparative terms, that
how many satellites does Ghana have?
It's not even just a matter of satellites, right? The people in government, most of them are also shareholders in all these companies. And that is established. Well, we know that since 2001.
MTN only went to the stock exchange just only recently. They were only listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange very recently. But the question is, when a company announces its profit, the profit indicates to you
what they are making
after they are
and there must be consumer protection.
All right, let's go to the editorials for this morning. It's taken from a Punch newspaper, page 20. It's on oil theft bleeding the country dry. Bayo.
Well, quickly, can I mention the latest appointment? Dr. Sarah Omotunde Alade has been approved as a special advisor to the President of Finance and Economy. However, the office is to be situated in the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Plan. You recall her. She was a deputy governor of the central bank, and before the confirmation of the incumbent, she had courses to act as the governor of the central bank and presided over MPR and CRR a couple of times. So that is more what do you call them? Technocrat now being brought to advise the Ministry of Finance. On the editorial, the concern is about the fact that Nigeria's oil is being stolen. Why? The quantum that we produce is not known. So nobody knows how much we produce, and therefore others are pilfering underneath and taking away some of our oil. But if we are to go by what Nati pointed out, Nati emphasizes that if we know the volume we produce per day accurately, then it will be easy to limit our oil that is stolen. However, the erstwhile Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachuku, actually, before he left office, announced a new system that was able to account for the quantum of petrol that was going. Also, before that time, there was an indication that there is a signature for the Nigerians' Brent crude, so much so that wherever it is stolen and taken to any part of the world, it can be identified. If these systems are in operation, then we will be able to limit the theft. Other than that, there is need to indulge in establishing the automated system which are used by other oil-producing countries. Saudi Arabia, for instance, Venezuela, for instance, they know the quantum of oil that is coming from their wells on a daily basis and the quantum that is leaving their shores on a daily basis. These are the precedents that we need to learn and also adopt.
It's an organized thing, you know. It's not just easy when it comes to oil theft, because that has to do with a certain level of technology.
Including satellites.
Okay.
Thank you very
much for being around. We'll see you via satellite tomorrow if it's available.
And we have NigerComSat.
Of course.
All right. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We take a short break now. When we return, we get into a very worrisome aspect of Nigerian politics, violence.
The Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, cordially invites members of the general public to a special town hall meeting on the fight against corruption. Date Thursday, 7th November 2019. Time 10 a.m. Venue, NAV Conference Center, Plot 496, Amedo Bello Way, Gwarimpa, Deeper Life Junction, near Cash and Carry, Kado, Abuja. Announcer, Deaconess Grace Isu Gateway, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Do you desire to upscale your skills in the area of archival management? Then you must attend NTA TV College special 2-week intensive course on archival management in the broadcast media. Date 11th to 22nd November 2019. Course fee 80,000 Naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Venue NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. This course is designed for archivists, librarians, and information managers in the private and public sector. Take advantage of the course to upgrade your capacity in digital storage of audio visuals, electronic cataloging, and classification of archival materials, record management, archival security, and much more. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
The program is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Well, before we bring you guests to discuss checkmating political thuggery, let's see what our correspondent Asha Obali brought back when she went out on the streets of Abuja to feel the pulse of Nigerians on the issue.
Political thuggery will not stop because why? Everybody in the political circle is looking forward to embarking on the game of the winner takes it all. Subduing and impoverishing the masses when election comes, the true poetry mongers and people grumble around.
One of the ways government can stop that is to send an executive bill to the National Assembly, because nobody's bigger than government. The social responsibility for every government is to protect life and the citizen of the people. If there's a robust penalty spelled out and enshrined with the constitution of our country and sent to INEC, either by disqualifying the candidate who sponsored that act, I think it will be a deterrent measure to others to, in fact, repent from such acts.
We need to educate the masses about thuggery. You understand? And mostly people that indulge in thuggery activities are the people that don't have a job. Like me, I'm busy. You cannot come and convince me that I should do this, I'll get this, and indulge in thuggery. So if we do educate, sanitize people, create jobs, you understand?
When the office is unattractive, people who go there will know they are going there to serve. In other climes, they value skill than politicians. Like in the US, if you're a mechanic, you earn more money than a senator. But it's not like that here. If you have skill, except you travel abroad, you can't make money. It's only politicians that make money. That is one of the problems. So people are ready to kill just to get to power. And that is the more reason why they don't want to make sure that your vote counts. If they want your vote to count, they would have done something about the Electoral Act. So that the way you collect your money from your ATM with your BVN, nobody has been able to hack into your account. You can vote that way too.
We must remove tribe and religion from politics. That is the number one thing. And two, we must begin to educate ourselves. Because those who are involved in this thuggery, what do they get? They get paid. People who are desperate to occupy political office, they pay criminals and criminality to come and commit all kinds of crime. Our people must first of all be educated.
When we don't make political offices so juicy that people are ready to kill, to do anything to get into position. If you are just going there to serve, and you know that at the end of the day, it's not really the money you are getting, but that the legacy you are going to leave behind.
Right, thank you very much, Aisha Bale, for the Vox Pop. With us here in the studios to discuss this issue in greater detail, we'd like to welcome some of our guests fairly familiar on the program. First, the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, Dr. Chris Akomas, is right here with us. Your Excellency, pleasure to have you again on the program.
Thank you, Kinsley, and a good morning, Nigeria.
Also here with us in the studios, we'd like to welcome Benson Olugbo, who is the Executive Director of Clean Foundation. Mr. Olugbo, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
And as well, we have Law Mefo. Law Mefo is a forensic and social psychologist. We're glad to have you this morning on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
And joining us from our Kaduna Network Center is Professor Kabiru Malto, a political scientist. Thank you, sir, for waking up with us this morning.
Very much, Kirian. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, gentlemen, in a couple of days, that'll be, next week, by the way, Kogi and Bayelsa states will have their off-cycle governorship elections. And the auguries, as the saying goes, are already portentous. Incidents of violence, threats of violence, and indeed more violence, actually, either before, during, and after the election. Against the background of what we have seen over the years, political thuggery and indeed election-related violence are now features of our politics. Why is this so? Why do we have this blotch and blotches at all times? Let's begin with His Excellency Dr. Akomas.
Thank you, Kinsley. The problem is growing because over the years we have allowed it to fester. You know, in the past, a politician will come to political meetings or an event with just one or two persons, or maybe just alone. And in the course of making a point, or if he's called upon to speak, another politician, an opponent or so, you'll be surprised, we just send some small boys, they'll take the microphone away from him and carry the man out of the podium. We've had experiences where people were thrown over the fence because of their ideas. Next time, if that person is coming, he will try to also protect himself. And what happens is that he now have his supporters who would ordinarily have been there just to cheer and clap, but who will now feel embarrassed or intimidated by what happened. Gradually, that continued to grow. And then, protecting the votes and even your supporters became another aspect of it. That is where you see people that are very popular, that people want, most times don't win because they are not violent. And by the way, what is this issue of thugs and thuggery? Thuggery is anti-social behavior, violent attitude that, you know, is geared towards intimidating the other person. And thugs, their interest is to achieve personal gain by violence. So you discover that in most cases, most politicians are actually boxed into it, not by intention, not that they are willing to. So to curtail and checkmate this, there is need for us to improve, one, on the mechanisms and processes of our electioneering, our electioneering process from the party level through to the main elections. And then our security should be more, alive. They have been doing a lot, but they can be everywhere. Just look at a situation now. Next week, we have Kogi and Bayelsa. Kogi, you have 21 local government areas. Each local government headquarters must be fully protected. They have 239 electoral wards. That also means that the ward centers must be fully protected. They have 2,548 polling centers, which has to be protected. So also with Bayelsa, with 8 local government, 105 wards, 1,804 polling centers. Now, if you calculate, that's why sometimes you hear people, oh, what are you doing with 20,000 policemen? Just say you put 5,000 per each center in Kogi, that's already close to 13,000. You now talk about the local government headquarters, the zonal, centers too, and then the state headquarters. The thugs come by way, sometimes pretending or supposedly saying that they are supporting a particular politician with the intention to force their will to be, obeyed. And because the other person also wants to protect, then it becomes a question of who is stronger. Now, if you look at these two states and the danger and why it is so prevalent in this type of election is that look at the terrain of Bayelsa. Also, even in Kogi, there are areas that the terrain also poses a challenge. And now you have just these two elections, and there are so many, free hands all over the country. Some will even empty themselves into those states without anybody inviting them, and they'll be looking for it. So to curtail these problems, we must begin to do the right things. Okay. And doing those right things is to be objective, to ensure that just as we have been complaining about 40 reward system, we also have 40 correctional systems. So people must be punished for their actions, for doing something that is wrong. And if anybody supports them, that person should also, or sponsor, should also be made to pay. There has been cases where, people will get themselves together and say to a politician, we are going to do this. And the politician will say, don't. And if you insist, they will not. But if they say body language, in any way, whether you provide the resources or not, they will find a way of doing it, thinking that they are pleasing that politician. So we must begin to think of the best way to punish just as we also reward.
All right. In the course of the conversation, we'll get to a point where we begin to profile solutions to that. But we'd like to thank you for that backgrounding, being a politician, who's been in the field. rising up to the deputy governor of a state at the time. Thank you very much indeed. Now, you know, the issue of political violence, as far as Nigeria is concerned, can be said to be historical, from the First Republic, Second Republic, and to the present day political terrain. It has always been there. And the phenomenon is pervasive, irrespective of political philosophy of the parties involved. Why has this persisted?
Oh, well, I think the issue is fairly clear and understandable. And you also gave an insight. It's historical. Right from time, First Republic to date, political violence and thuggery have only escalated, as far as I am concerned. There are reasons for it. First is that politics in Nigeria is business. The average Nigerian politician, indeed, if not all, has no second business address. Politics is not profession, it's service. It's where people go to give back. In social psychology, you know, there's what we call self-actualization, right? A theory of motivation. The point where the individual begins to give back to society. That is politics. That is where the point of entry in a normal climb where people really practice democracy. But here, the point of entry here is where people are still struggling for basic physiological needs: food, clothing, and shelter. In other words, if you have people who are, you know, abjectly poor, but because they have access to sponsors and stuff, they get in. And when they get in into political positions, they are determined to stay there also because they have nothing else to fall back to. This is one major factor. Then, the attitude of those who actually occupy political positions is another major factor. When they get in there, they do not want to leave. You know, sit tight syndrome is here with us in Nigeria and indeed in Africa. The third factor, beyond sitting down there and not determining to go, is absence of basic democratic ethos and principles. You know, the democracy is talking about the will of the majority to determine who governs them, right? Vote, counting. In Nigeria, it's not vote that counts, it's those who count the vote. Do you understand that? So what the politician is determined to achieve is to have a control over the counting of the vote. Because he knows that in the final analysis, a zero or two added to your figure can change the whole thing. And once that is done, a winner is determined just by a stroke of the pen. When you have a situation like that and there is no punishment, you can allow the process to continue ad infinitum, because one, like Deputy Governor Akomasi has said, you know, he was there in the field, so he's coming with him with a bag of experience, right? When you do not punish an action, in learning psychology, any action that is not punished is likely to repeat itself. Do you understand that? So deterrence, you know, is not there. The laws are weak. Enforcement is practically absent. And those who are in power, who get to power through that process, will also frustrate punishment. Why? Because the process helped into the place. So if you become a governor through thuggery, through vote buying, through manipulation, gerrymandering of all sorts, you are not likely to have your men who put you in power punished because they committed a crime doing so. Have you asked yourself who pays for even the tribunal, you know, processes for the incumbents? It's the state. They draw money. Is there any law that says that it's somebody who is declared a winner that is going to the tribunal? would have to use his personal resources? Has anybody ever checked that? Once you allow that to happen, a certain politician said, don't come to me crying that you lost an election. Win anyhow. Come and ask me how to protect your victory. That is the system we run. That's where we are. That's precisely how the hell we got here.
Well, Lord, thanks a lot. Let's bring in Benson for his own perspective. I mean, listening to a lot of this is what we call, positive description. That's precisely the way we are. But, of course, any right-thinking individual will feel offended by what we see all around us, not just on the eve of the Kogi and Bayelsa elections, but in general. I mean, Dr. Akumas was talking about the topography of Bayelsa as an example. But we saw what happened in Lagos, in Okota, plain hard land, terra firma, when people were casting their votes. Thugs invaded the polling units, disrupted polling, threw away the ballot boxes and scared people away. Some even set the ballot papers, made a bonfire of the ballot papers. So how are we able to, as it were, live with this aberrant behavior?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. The reality is that political thuggery is manufactured, produced, and consumed by politicians. And I think His Excellency has actually hit the nail on the head. Let me give you a little statistics. During the 2019 general elections, the Nigerian Police Force set up a special force to arrest electoral offenders with the help of other security agencies. And they managed to arrest 1,119 electoral offenders. And the police promised us, I remember Frank Mba, the PPRO, coming here also when we had these discussions to tell us that those individuals will actually be prosecuted. So we have followed up on that prosecution promise. So in August 2019, we visited the Inspector General of Police. In the course of discussions, we reminded him about the promise of prosecuting electoral offenders, which of course includes political thugs. What he told us is that the Independent National Electoral Commission formally wrote and requested for the case files of those individuals who they were investigating or may have concluded investigation and all those things. So we said, well, that is the normal course of events, because Section 150 of the Electoral Act actually says that it's INEC that should prosecute individuals who are, caught wanting during the electoral process. So we followed up on INEC. And INEC, not formally, informally, INEC said yes, we wrote a letter, but we have not received the case files. This was in August. So this discussion continued, informal discussion continued. By October, we went back to police again. We said we are releasing our electoral report for 2019. And this is a key issue, electoral security management. We have not heard of any prosecution. We have not seen anybody before the court being prosecuted for electoral violence. And we're going to tell Nigerians that what the law says is that you must prosecute. You promised us you're going to prosecute. So what is happening? So to cut a long story short, after the public presentation, which we also spoke to the press, INEC now confirmed that they have received some case files. The chairman of INEC also confirmed to us a few weeks ago when we had a meeting, quarterly meeting we normally have with him, that they have received the case files. But the informal conversation we had is that the case files they have received, they are very few, and that what they have is the low-level criminals. I don't know how law will refer to them. That they were looking for the big fish. But our own argument is whether you have the big fish, the medium fish, or the small fish, start prosecution, because the law gives you the power under Section 150 to prosecute. The interesting thing is that INEC is actually complimenting or thanking the EFCC and the ICPC because they've done some prosecution on vote trading. But our own stand is that that is not enough. The primary responsibility of prosecuting those who commit both electoral violence, electoral thuggery, lies on INEC. And the law is there. The law has not been changed. So INEC needs to put his ass together and deal with this issue. So even beyond the issue of prosecution. I think we have to look at generally again the reward system. Like Mefo rightly pointed out, the reward system is so high. Election in Nigeria is war. Everybody prepares as if you're going to war, and it's winner takes all. So this is something politicians know that they are going to benefit from. So they put everything out there to deal with whoever. In fact, your opponent is seen as an enemy. So whatever you have to crush, or in Nigeria we have this thing: take over, crush, destroy, remove. So these are high-sounding words. It shows you that it's as if you're in a conflict. So you have to, we talk of arsenal, and we talk of heavy-sounding words that you are used to eliminate opponents. As if you're doing intercontinental missile and you're sending, things against neighbors and all. But this is election. It's only in Nigeria that the ballot paper is printed with the same features you print money. As I speak now, the voters' cards that were not distributed in Kogi and Bayelsa are inside the central bank. Why? Because if it is in a normal place, people will enter that place and collect those materials. So the recent trade assessment, we did three test assessments before the elections. We did one in April, October, and January. All of them showed that political talks will feature greatly in the elections. And of course, the voices are clear. 1,119 electoral offenders. Kogi and Bayelsa are even interesting cases because they have history of political thuggery and electoral violence. The IG has come out to say they are sending about around 60,000 plus minus for the elections and all those things. INEC has also told us how they plan to mitigate the effects of political thuggery. But deterrence is important. When people commit crimes, they are not held accountable. It's a recipe for impunity. And like Lord Mefo rightly pointed out, when there is no punishment, people actually plan. So 2019 has gone. We're expecting prosecutions to happen actually to be a deterrence. But when people don't see it, then they'll go and amass money, amass weapons, and then want to deal with opponents or whoever will stand in their way of winning the election. It's really unfortunate. I think it's something we need to deal with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. What actually, is interesting about what he said was the fact that they have manufactured some words, some languages, to fire each other. And we read in African politics, that these are some of the elements. Winner takes it all. Your opponent becomes your enemy. There's no kind of party ideology or philosophy that will guide your belief. What is required of you is to get there first, and of course, we will handle the rest. Let's get to Professor Kabiru Mato in our Kaduna studio, who is a political scientist. So it does appear that your discipline is gradually being bastardized in this country. Everybody's a politician. Politics has become a profession where people say, look, I am not a politician, so whatever you're talking about is behind me. And you have listened to other guests and what they have been able to submit in their opening remarks. What's your own with respect to the issue for today, which is of course checkmating political violence and thuggery in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Kiran. Good morning, Nigeria. I think, it is very easy to understand that there is a sharp difference between a political scientist and a politician. Anybody can be a politician, but not everyone certainly is a political scientist. Of course, politics is, that dream that is defined appropriately and understood more, explained by those that are called the political scientists. But like I said, there is a sharp difference between a politician on one hand and a political scientist on the other hand. Now, back on the topic of our discussion this morning, I think it's very important also that we need to understand that there is a sharp dichotomy between political violence on one hand and political thuggery. Political violence does occur when an election is conducted and there is a feeling of apprehension on the part of the citizenry that perhaps certain infractions, either by the electoral umpire or by the politicians, have taken place. You can call that political violence. While political thuggery, on the other hand, is deliberately a perpetuation by political actors in order to subdue their political opponents during the political contest. And who are these political thugs that we are talking about? In Nigeria, as it is clearly said, it has a history right from colonial period up to the present times. The only difference is that with every military interregnum, a new form of political thuggery surfaces within the Nigerian political landscape. The one we are confronting with now is the one that actually started with the ascendancy of General Obasanjo in 1999. That is the heralding of this particular democratic era that we are practicing in Nigeria. And unfortunately, these people we call political thugs are those that during electioneering campaign commonly referred to as the youth wing of our respective political parties or youth wing of our respective camps. And by the time elections are either won or lost, the nomenclature quickly shifts from youth wing, members of the youth wing of a political formation to political thugs. And as the panel there in Abuja did rightly mention, it's basically a creation of so many factors. But one fundamental reason that stands very clearly is the fact that the political enterprise in Nigeria is extremely attractive. It is one of the most attractive ventures that you have across the globe. Like in any other society where politicians, strive to represent their respective communities and peoples in order to secure the best within that particular political permutation. In our own case, it is a deliberate business investment that people go into in order to secure huge profit as a result of it. And that is why, we see in this country people getting into political positions from councillorship up to the presidential level with nothing actually, with no economic pedigree, but within the shortest possible of time becoming the most affluent people in their communities, in their constituencies, in their state, etc. So that means that politics has become more of an economic enterprise. Yes, there is a very close relationship between politics and economics because it is politics that determines the direction of the economic activity in any human society. But in our own case here, politics has become a venture, and like everybody there did say very clearly, the stakes are so high. Attempts have been made in the past, especially during the Yaradua administration when the Justice West panel was put in place to reduce this, recommend ways and means of reducing this attraction, to political positions. And some recommendations were made, which unfortunately the government of the did not see any reason, to propose them for legislation so that it will reduce this attraction and make, representation in the state assembly, in the local government council, the Senate and House of Representatives, even the presidency less attractive, so that Nigerians will not stake everything that they have. Nigerians put up all the resources they have at their disposal in order to win a particular political position in the view that as soon as they win, within the period of 4 years, there will be recouping and there will be profit out of that investment. So in a scenario like this, therefore, you will expect that politics becomes a matter of life and death. An election is, a life and death affair. Of course, President Obasanjo did tell us that sometimes in the early 2000s that election is a matter of life and death. I agree that politics is war without bloodshed, as some, earlier thinkers did say. But in our own case here, it is so endemic, and as long as we continue the way we are going, it is not likely we are going to see the end of it. Because by the time these political thugs are created during electioneering campaign, soon after election, the government that wins the election finds it difficult to accommodate these individuals, and the result is what we see manifesting itself in form of very serious antisocial activities across the length and breadth of this country. If you trace the history of Boko Haram, it has to do with the evolution of political thuggery. If you trace the history of this Niger Delta militancy, the Odua People's Congress, etc., are all actually products of this political thuggery that were indeed contrived by political contestants, and at attainment of victory, they are unable to accommodate them within the very scarce resources of their respective states and the nation as a whole. And what we have, therefore, is a body of very young, virile people. And one of the most disturbing phenomena in this situation is that a lot of politicians have over time been dedicating substantial quantum of revenue for this youth wing, who eventually turned to become political thugs, to procure illicit drugs. illicit drugs and other substances in order to get themselves perpetually intoxicated so that they take care of the political enemy. I agree with the deputy governor who said, the level of political violence, and thuggery in Nigeria, of course, varies from one section of the country to the other. But, with the civil rule now taking shape in the country, it appears that those we call political thugs in one part of the country are learning new tricks from those other political thugs in other parts of the country on those things that they are doing in order to undo them. So I am saying that thuggery in most cases is a deliberate creation of the political actors in order to achieve the objective of winning political power. And as long as we do not have a reflection on our attitude to ensure that these things are severely dealt with, then of course we are going to continue to sink deeper, and unfortunately, because by the time you get a young boy or young girl who is in secondary school or just out of secondary school, and you entice him or her with tremendous resources and then with this drug addiction and falls into that, it becomes very difficult. And we have to continue to encourage the proliferation of, rehabilitation centers, etc., in order to deal with this problem. So thuggery is really a serious problem. I am saying that political violence is one side of the coin, and it's not necessarily what one can call political thuggery, but political thuggery is a deliberate creation of the political actor in order to win advantage. And whether he or she wins or not, the society is the loser at the end of the day.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Mato. The points you've raised are all noted. Thuggery is a variant of violence, Kirian.
Exactly.
If it's related to election, then it becomes electoral violence, as it were. Political thuggery, can last throughout the entire period without being tied specifically to an election. Some of the issues that Professor Mato raised are issues that I would like us to also address at this time, namely the point of recruitment for these political thugs. I mean, some of them, they claim to be the youth wing. What is the role of the youth wing of a political party? There was an attempt to outlaw youth wings of parties in the past, but they said, on account of inclusion, bring in women, bring in the youth, don't outlaw the way. But from what we do know, a person who claims to be the youth leader, if you see, probably is older than myself. Older than any of us here, and they claim to be a youth. That is one. Two, some of these thugs are usually also on temporary employment. You take them out for a particular purpose, arm them, as it were, and thereafter they are disengaged, and then they become a threat to society. The third point, which is very crucial, Your Excellency, the former Deputy Governor, is as follows. Look, we also hear from time to time, and we have actually raised it with them here. What is the transport unions? Sometimes, you will see them, you will hear them declaring support for a particular candidate. Some of the Agberos and so on and so forth, they get to be involved in politics. What, therefore, can we do in try to stymie the recruitment centers for political thugs? The youths, the drug addicts and layabouts, and some Agberos, for instance.
Thank you, Kingsley. Like I said from the onset in my opening statement, when people commit crime or do something that is that goes against the law of the land, and no punishment is meted, the deterrent factors become absent. Instead, it turns or becomes something that attracts reward, positive reward, as we say it. Then it's a problem. How do you stop the recruitment centers? That is not something you can just do by fiat, by declaration, or by policy pronouncement. We have to really go back to the basics. First, you cannot stop any group of people or any person from declaring support for whatever he wants. Our constitution makes that clear. People are free to associate and they are free to declare support. And by the way, both the thugs, members of the transport union, the women and youths we are talking about, they are also Nigerians that have the same right as both those contesting and those that are going to vote. So they decide. But what is key here is to come up with a system that will make people know that the decision you take today will have consequence tomorrow. That is key. Would frictions, violence, and that stop in power pursuit? No. It has been like that from the beginning of days. After all, the story of Cain and Abel, what was it about? It was one person trying to outshine the other. And the envy resulted in that. You go through, for those of us that are Christians, you go through the Bible, we even read, and even within our country here, we've seen sons fighting their fathers so that they can give way for them to mount the saddle. We see friends. Burkina Faso is not far away from us. We saw what happened. When people brought information to Sankara, he said, if it's Blaise, don't tell me because whatever it is has already succeeded. That was the level of trust. So this is part of man. Now, how do we reduce that? We have to begin to educate and reorientate our people. We have to find a way of passing the information that this is a serious crime, not just against the society, not just against the community, but against that person and generations to come. We must not only focus on the school systems alone. We have to also use our traditional systems to educate and reorientate people. That is one. Two, the punishment process must be clear and straight. Three, like I said, the whole process of recruitment and contest through elections has to be truly objective. People should begin to be fair or seen to be fair, because what generates more of this? Like I said, if you have come with the best of intentions and somebody who may not have as much support as you have just get some boys to embarrass you or carry you and throw overboard and throw the person away or these things, next time you won't leave yourself open.
You have your own boys.
You have your own boys. Even if you don't, the boys themselves will organize. Is it important to have the youth wings and women wings? Very important.
Let's remove women, youths.
It's all encompassing. You'll be shocked. The kind of strength, when it comes to this violence, these people you think they're very strong. But what you said is being taken care of now. I know that in like a youth leader that is above 40 can no longer be now. It's in the constitution.
Why don't you lower the age to 35? Why is it 40? Lower it to 35.
But that is, something is on already.
Oh, fantastic.
Unlike before, you have people 60, 70 as youth leaders. But that is a good beginning. Okay? So gradually, I'm sure it will be lowered. If the maximum is 40, so one will be looking for something within that bracket. That's a start. Should the youth be important in what we are doing? Yes. Tomorrow you will have reason to call us for another discussion on exclusion of youths in the power process and all that. But the point is, how are the youths positioning themselves?
Because how are they being utilized in the power pursuit process?
You see, if you don't say here I am, nobody will say there you are. My people have a proverb that a youth that washes his hand, a child that washes his hands or her hands clean, eat with elders. You don't come to the table with nothing. I'm not talking of money. Come with something. Come with ideas. Let people see and know that you have something to offer. When you do, I remember as a growing, in my community, we have a small group that we normally. So because every time when we see something, we go to the traditional, to the elders and say, this is not right if you do it this way. We were on our own doing our own thing one day because we used to do extramural classes for people to encourage them and help them, you know, pass the exams. One day, the elders called us and say, you'll be represented in the council so that we can have those ideas as we discuss. We already have people in the system that are young ones that have, you know, shown that people go to school. If you go to school, read, study, and know your subject, don't believe in something. Come out with something to offer. If you go to learn how to do this thing, get it well. When you have something to offer, people will respect you. And when you come to a group or anything, they will identify that this person is here with value to add to what we are doing. So nobody will easily send it. And then greed. We have people growing up that want to be like you overnight. It's good that they're looking up to you as a model, but they don't want to go through the process of preparing themselves to be. So they have seen somebody owns a car, owns this, oh, I want to get it tomorrow. But how many years? What are the processes? What did that person go through? They don't want to be part of that. These are areas we have a lot of work to do. It is not peculiar when it comes to power play that there will be these frictions. But what is peculiar is that we are taking it to a level that is highly unacceptable, intolerable, and we must put a stop to it.
All right.
Now.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. You know, that's not gainsaying, you know, the fact that the youths, you know, need to be carried along for them to learn the process. Those who are willing to learn the process, because tomorrow they're going to be the leaders. Now, a short while ago, Dr. Benson Olubo told us that, you know, political thuggery or electoral violence are products of politicians. That's according to him. And historically speaking, we used to have vanguards, fronts, organized by politicians, right? And all these fronts and vanguards were then made up of young Nigerians. I'm talking about specifically in the Second Republic, yeah. Right? So it got to a point where it became normal, you know, for a politician to have a movement under him that, of course, gives him the support he needs, either during or after elections. Now, there's one thing we have to note and make clear here, and that's the fact that there are other aspects of political thuggery that perhaps many do not know. Do you know that if you declare interest to run for an election and your poster appears in a place or one or two places, you will not be surprised to get some text messages from people that you wouldn't know how they got to you get your number, that look, you should not continue pasting your poster anywhere or else. Do you understand? So it's part of it. So let me bring in a lawman for here. The deterioration has been so disturbing according to Mr. Comas here. So what next?
Well, you see, the issue confronting us here, whether you call it electoral violence or political thuggery, no matter what you call it, I believe it's all the same thing. At least in the way and manner it has played out in our own climate. The system is too murky. The institutions to make sure that there are rules and that actors play according to those rules are too weak. security system is too poor. A politician that is thrusting himself forward basically needs security. If that security is guaranteed in the system, he may not have to go the extra mile of wasting extra money to organize his own security. Because for me, I see this Thuggery as a crude way of politicians organizing their own security. Right? Yes, it is intended to intimidate, but it also inherently has to do with protecting the politician himself. First and foremost, the bodyguard system. That is what this Thuggery begins as, and then extends to the intimidating, harassing, and
assault,
aggressing against the opponents and other camps. The system has not been able to checkmate it. Benson talked about recorded cases of 1,119 electoral violence cases that, as of today, nothing has been done about. For me, that in itself is a reward to the actions. The delay in administering that justice, meting it out to those who perpetrated it, is aimed at not only punishing the perpetrators, but also produce deterrence against would-be political thug actors. Tomorrow, Americans would say, if you do the crime, you do the time, right? That means you have to get behind the bars because of what you have done. It's a consequence of your action. This has not been allowed to be the case between INEC and the police. Nothing has happened. INEC is saying they haven't seen the files. The ones they see have to do with some palliatives, what you may call symbolic gestures. They don't have enough to really go to court and all that. Police will still tell you they are doing investigations over all those ones. We know what is going on. What is going on is that the people who perpetrated these actions are being protected by their masters. Let us face reality. They are being protected by their masters. That is, it goes back to, if you want a solution to a situation like that, you go to the root cause. I mentioned before that what is breeding the desperation in the system is because politicians have been able to access the counting of the vote. So they avoid and abandon voting because voting by and large doesn't really count in Nigeria. Let's face facts. If voting does not count, but counting does, you need to do something about controlling the counting so that it will not be accessed by the violent politicians. 3 things to be done here. 1, you need to provide what you call real time between voting and counting. That is where electronic voting system becomes inescapable. All attempts also of politicians to frustrate that process is because they are benefiting from it. Nigerians must insist on electronic voting system. That is number 1. Number 2, you need to amend certain extant laws. There has been this talk about the INEC, having a commission that will face prosecution. I don't think that is where the problem is. The laws, the extant laws are there, and the prosecutorial powers of INEC is also there contained in the extant Electoral Act. The Nigerian Police Act, is replete with provisions against all these actions. Thuggery, violence, theft, murder. People die and nobody goes to jail. Do you understand that? So we have been able to separate crimes committed in elections and have continued to glorify and justify them. As long as you do so, it will continue. Thuggery has become glamorous. Have you noticed that cultism, which is feeding Thuggery, is becoming a widespread societal problem? Do you know that cultism has now extended to the open society, percolated down to even secondary schools? Cultism is feeding Thuggery, and
It's feeding political thuggery.
Yes, thuggery generally, not only political, all the criminality is feeding, and that is the recruiting ground.
Precisely.
That's the recruiting ground. The thugs are criminals that are essentially bred by certain antisocial conducts that are openly tolerated by our system. Until you address that, until you stop glamorizing evil, justifying what is clearly evil, glorifying what is evil. In fact, being in Igbo land, you call them Abobi, right? Abobi. That's what they are called, And
what does that mean? Translate.
People who go for thuggery as a profession. That's the truth. And they are kitted up,
and they're usually physically endowed.
They pump up, gym and all that, and really become extraordinarily big. And they are used by.
Did you say they're Unkuobi or Akbu-obi?
That's what we call them.
From Akbu.
So finally, so that Benson can come in. The point I'm trying to make is that absence of political will to face and defend our democracy is the main problem we face. Let me tell you, some people have not actually considered what Nigerians went through in 1999 to bring about this democracy. That is why they don't care whether it is destroyed or whether it survives. We need to do something about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Lawmefor, and indeed the other guests. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation and also take some tweets that have come in from our viewers.
Hold it! Me! I don't comot my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you gonna yarn? What did the yarn serve? I don't understand though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants is there. You know good. Me! I not do again Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
About to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Talent reality TV show. Coming soon.
All right, well, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's go over to our Kaduna Network Center, where Professor Mato is still with us on the program. Prof, it's possibly the case that there is no state of the Nigerian Federation today where, if one looked closely, you would not find somebody who is referred to as an enforcer, who has access, to government house, has access to the power, to the centers of power, and sometimes, these are persons who are the organizers of the thugs, for those who are in power, and then those, of course, who are aspiring to be in office also have their own militia. And for those who are in office, the way they get compensated is to give them sources of revenue, go and be collecting rates and levies in markets, and so on and so forth. persons have argued that usually when the lieutenants of these enforcers or the others who are aspiring get arrested, a call is usually put through to say, release him, release that, and they get off the hook. How can we overcome this? Because it's been there for as long as one can possibly remember. Whether those who are in or out of power at one time or the other, they were beneficiaries of this intolerable situation.
Very much, Kingsley. You see, the reality is that political thuggery has assumed a proportion of being an institution within the Nigerian body politics for a very long time. It's not impossible, like you said, that there are so many people across the states of this country that are reality leaders of political thugs that have access directly to the powers that be. It's really very possible. But then what I am saying is this, that political thuggery, being what it is in this country today, is a deliberate creation of the politician, not because he or she is desirous of any security cover. I'm surprised that Dr. Amo, the doctor in the studios there, will want to align or create a relationship between the feeling of insecurity as a result of the inability of the state to provide security to the political actor with the creation of these political thugs that intended to protect, the political actor. It's really very. I hope I misunderstood what he is saying. But if that is the situation, it's really not what the matter is. The fact of the matter is that it is the political actor that creates these political thugs as an institution in order to do his or her bidding. That's the reality. And that's the menace that Nigeria is trying, and that's what we are talking about, and that's what I think we're trying to profile solutions on how to go about resolving them. Now, a lot of us here have spoken about the need of a legal framework that will tend to criminalize, the activities of this, political thug. But it's not possible for us to be able to get that now, as long as the institution of political thuggery itself is being sponsored by those that are in political positions. Now, a lot of times, those who dare complain about political thuggery in most cases are those who lose in the electoral battle. And to those who win in the electoral contest, like I did say, are people who are made to contend, with the ravages of a monster that they have created. So I think it's really very important for us to understand that the question of political thuggery in this country is merely an attitudinal one. Attitudinal one in the sense that the political class itself is very, very culpable. It is implicit. It is implicated in the proliferation and the sustenance of this menace within our society. And if we don't address it, has the potency of continuously diminishing the meaning and the impact of the democratic system of government that we are practicing in this country. Ideally, 20 years after the institution of civil rule, by now, a lot of these vestiges, would have been fading away. But it appears, because of the very numerous roles that these antisocial elements play within the political cycle, they are maintaining relevance, and that the tragedy is it's even expanding. And I think it's really true that there are a lot of state actors in various government houses that tend to not only accommodate this, but see it as a way of, perpetuating their political dominance and dealing with the political opponents. And as long as we don't see it like that, then of course we will continue to run round the cycle, and at the end of the day, the meaning of political thuggery is not even comprehended and appreciated by those who ordinarily should take. A lot of issues that are bothering our politics actually do not have to do with either the laws that are there or the conventions that are already established, but that we have this very negative attitude towards the political enterprise. If we do really believe that election is a free will, is a free expression of the desire of people to select or elect particular set of people to do representation at various levels, periodically and at intervals, then of course we have to come to grips with the fact that we can win election, we can also lose election. We can win election not because we are the best. And that's one of the tragedies of Western liberal democracy. The best within the community could be rejected and then the worst within that particular setting be elected as the representative. You cannot question that integrity, but with continuous enlightenment, we will come to grasp with this reality at a later date. But I think, like I did say, the most important thing that we need to do is that there has to be continuous, deliberate conscientization and information on those political actors at various levels of our national political life, for them to understand the implication of creating and sustaining political thugs as a way of accessing political power in Nigeria. Yes, politics is about economics. Everybody goes into politics because he or she wants to have the ability and accounts, the legal authority to allocate societal economic resources. But it should not be a matter of life and death as we have seen it in this country. And as long as politics is when you win, you take everything, and when you lose everything, the possibilities of reducing the menace of political thuggery in our political system will become severely diminished. I think we must really look at it and revisit our, perhaps, regulatory frameworks to make sure that in politics, when you win, you don't take everything, and when you lose, you don't lose everything. What does that mean? The West panel, like I did say, recommended proportional representation. For instance, it's done in several other African countries as a way of assuaging the feelings of the minorities within the communities or those who lose out of electoral battles. But as long as it is, in this country, Kingsley, you know, and I know that it is a very common balance within the political cycles that when an election is conducted, do all you can. Somebody there was talking about, votes not counting and counting does matter. Those who count the votes are those who determine, who does the representation, and not those who actually went to cast their votes. Now, if we are to see to the end of this, then it is necessary for us to create a deliberate platform whereby those who are participating in election are not losers or winners in total. And by the way, in several other African countries, like I said, in Rwanda, Uganda, and so many of these strategies have been adopted and goes a long way in reducing the political, bottlenecks. And one important thing, again, that I want to say here, Kingsley, is that political position in Nigeria is very attractive. You could be a pauper today, and once you win election into a local government council, by next year you have the best house in your village. You drive the best car, and your wife becomes, the envy of all other women within your locality. This is a very fundamental problem. What is responsible for that? And as long as we don't change that deliberately, then of course we are going to continue to face crisis, because everyone that stakes his or her neck to go into an electoral contest will accept nothing outside of. That's why we see politicians wasting resources. And there is no country on the surface of earth that pays a legal practitioner 1 billion naira after he loses or he wins election to defend him who are in the judiciary. There is no country on earth that does that. In Nigeria today, you need to go and investigate. Every contestant that has money and contested election and either loses or wins and hires a lawyer, the lawyer will provide or will make a request for certain quantum of money to settle those in the judiciary. This is not a secret. It's very open. President Obasanjo told us here a long time ago that our judges and judges will go to the court with 2 judgments, one in the right pocket and the other one in the left pocket. And depending on what way the pendulum swings, justice goes the way. So these are basic realities that we need to be open. We need to talk to one another about if we want to find. After all, what happens? Senior advocates of Nigeria that you knew a few years ago, teaching, going to our universities, seeking for places to do part-time teaching, will be flying aircrafts now, owning aircrafts. What happens? No industry, no farm, no nothing. Electoral cases. And we see this and we keep quiet, and then we continue to talk about certain infractions within our political system. I think we need to do more. We need to be very honest. We have to attune our attitudes. Democracy is not about laws. It's not about documents you put in any particular piece of paper or legislation. It is about the attitude of the people, the willingness to abide by the tenets. Britain, for God's sake, one of the oldest Western liberal democracies on the surface of earth, is being governed without a constitution. Every 4 years, we try to change virtually everything in our constitution. Everyone that is privileged to be a member of the National Assembly will desire, or a state assembly will desire to see that the laws are crafted in such a way that reflects his or her personal views and aspirations. Now,
well, we'd like to thank you so much, Kabiru Manto. He has actually opened up a lot of issues, surrounding our topic for this morning, with all that all have to do with politics of this country. We'd like to appreciate you one more time for being part of our show this morning. Thank you very much, Professor Kabiru Manto, a political scientist who reached us all the way from Kaduna. Thank you one more time. And now back to Abuja. From what he said, gentlemen, you can see that we really have a long way to go. When he talked about people being in a position to have the authoritative allocation of scarce resources, that makes politics a must win, right? And Dr. Benson Olugbo, let me bring you in here. We hear about flashpoint states, for instance, and Kogi and Bayelsa, I'm sure, should be part of that flashpoint states. Historically speaking, going by elections we've been having over the years, what should Nigerians be expecting? And again, what are your solutions, to political thuggery in Nigeria?
I mean, there's no silver bullet here, but we have to be realistic in our expectations. We just have to call politicians to agree that there is need to change the system. I agree with Professor with what he said. In South Africa, they also have proportional representation. So you don't lose everything. So depending on the amount of votes you get, you are given some slots. In Uganda, there's also what they call affirmative action, which actually means that some particular slots are reserved for women. So you have women against women contest. Because also what this is doing is that it has gradually brought us to the situation where we have less women contesting. And that also has its own problem for inclusion, because the whole system is rigged, it is violent, and there's a lot of political thuggery. So even the best hands, especially women who want to come out and contribute, they have to withdraw because they can't afford the money involved, the violence involved, and whatever it takes to do that. In Rwanda, of course, we know that they have more or less 50-50 representation. And these are African countries. They are not Europeans or America. So for us, I also know that a sitting senator has asked a very critical question. What do we need 3 senators in a state that 1 senator cannot do? I think that's something we should also be looking at in terms of our political framework. Do we need all the senators? Do we need all the members of House of Representatives? Should there be part-time in terms of National Assembly? Maybe the senators, should we have them as part-time? That's something we really need to interrogate, because democracy is for the people and it should bring benefits, it should bring dividends of democracy. It is not to service politicians. I think also there is need to revisit the Electoral Act that the President did not sign, because I think it's now an issue of legacy. One of the key recommendations that was made is to have an electoral offences tribunal, because we know that INEC has come out consistently to say that they are overburdened and that the issue of prosecution of electoral offenders, they may not be able to handle it. People are saying, do you need another electoral commission, electoral offences commission? If INEC is unable to do that, then we need to start looking at alternatives. And that is why, for me, I support the idea of revising that electoral act that was not assented to by the president. On a minimum, we really need to get that bill back. Let the president assert to it now that we are still in 2019, so that it becomes a framework for us to do other reviews before the 2023 election. One of the problems we have in Nigeria is that everybody goes to sleep after elections, and then we wake up July or June 2022 and start worrying, what do we do before the elections and all those things. For me, I think in terms of electoral reform, this is the best period we have to look and interrogate the laws we have. What is the best option? And then also in terms, there is a problem for me, internal democracy. There is a problem with our internal party democracy. The parties are weak, and so you have it that they don't really get the best in terms of political content. So it's whatever they present to us that we'll have to manage. So I think there is need for that internal party democracy. And finally, the reward system, we have to look at it again. Do we really deserve where the winner takes all and the loser loses all? because it has its own problem in terms of contestations, in terms of national security, and in terms of political development. Thank you very much.
Olugbo, thank you very much. Dr. Chris Akumas, very briefly, I know you want to react to some of the points that have been made by the other guests, but I would like you to also react to this. We've talked about the deterrence, or the absence of deterrence. Is it necessarily the case that the law enforcement agencies are weak, in fact too weak to even enforce the law against the background of the overbearing influence of political office holders? As you very well know, if a party that is in power at the state level is also the party in power at the federal level, we have seen it since 1999, and they want to deal with you, instead of using the law enforcement agents within the state, they will look for people from Abuja, to come and pick up the enforcers of your opponents or otherwise, and then take them to Abuja. These are not federal offenses; these are otherwise state offenses. And the same phone call that I talked about earlier, you arrest an enforcer who is linked to government house, they will say release him, even if the person commits, a capital offense.
Thank you. First, I want to really react to just to put some points straight and bring practicality, the real situation to it. First, to my brother and friend, Dr. Mefo. It was Stalin that said the voters are not as important as those that count the votes. And recent experiences have shown that even in the US. You remember the Florida experience during the Bush Gore. You also remember the Hillary Clinton and Trump, which they have been struggling with. So when people talk about, yes, I agree, we need to advance and move into real-time online, talking about electronic voting and all that. But are we really prepared to now checkmate, borrowing from the experiences of the people out there? Two, Prof made some key points, but there was something he said, disagreeing with me, I, as a politician from the field, who is always in the field, I want to tell Prof that if tomorrow he wants to contest, even as councillor in his locality, the normal security system cannot protect him. The supporters must come around, the community and the people. Even his posters, his billboards cannot stand. People protect billboards, people protect posters. Like Kirian pointed out, I had posters, and people, if you are popular, people will continue to remove your posters, destroy your billboards. Those are things, and who are the people doing this? They are thugs and people paid by your opponents who think that just your picture alone is enough to spoil their business. What happened to Bolige? What happened to Funshaw Williams? What happened to OGB and several politicians in this country? It was because they thought they were protected enough.
Are the law enforcement agents completely out of the loop? Are they too weak?
That's where I'm coming to, because you asked a question. The law enforcement agents are not as weak as we think, but they don't have all the wherewithal. They don't have all the men to give. When I made references to the number of polling units, centers and all that, how many can they post to a particular center?
So that is for voting, or that is for voting?
No, I'm coming to that.
Violence.
I said, yes, but that is for voting, and the politician is expected to go there without any uniformed security man or any security person, for that matter. No arms, no ammunition. Okay? And that is also porous. Are they weak? To some extent, it's based on what they have, the capability and the capacity. Are there instructions and powers that, hem on them to take certain decisions. Ordinarily, they would. Yes, there are.
We are going to stop you there, Dr. Chris Akomas. You know, time has run out. You know, you have really made your points. You know, and they're very, very interesting points. We have tweets here from people. Let's just take a few of them. Essentially, from Standard Vic. Well, he said a lot of people, mainly youths, have been brainwashed with money and promising positions. Leaders with bad comments are promoting this act among the youth.
Now, Clifford Agugo said, Nigeria has enough to satisfy the needs of our citizens, but greedy politicians and their allies would not allow this to happen.
Daniel Abiru, Thuggery and touts may for a long time be part of political activities as long as we operate this structure of paying political office holders so much at the expense of improved economy.
Now, Akejo Olabwaju tweets, Thuggery is a creation of the political class and its antisocial semblance must be punished.
Well, Omobola Hababs, political thuggery is as old as the Nigerian political history itself. From the 50s through 60s to 80s, the story of welfare in the, I hope I got that correctly, in our Awolowo era is still very fresh in our memories. However, as we evolve, this whole social miasma shouldn't be evaporated, but here we are.
All right, those are the tweets that we can accommodate. On that note, we'll also like to appreciate all our guests who've been with us in this conversation segment. From our Kaduna Network Center, we're joined by Professor Kabir Mato, who is a professor of political science. Prof, thanks a lot for being with us on the program today. Here in our Abuja studios, deep thanks to Dr. Love Mefo, social psychologist. Always a delight having you. And Benson Olugbo also, thank you for being with us, Executive Director, Clean Foundation. And last but not the least, the former Deputy Governor of Abia State, His Excellency Dr. Chris Akomas. Thanks a lot for being with us on the program.
Thank you.
Let's go over now to our sports desk.
The Golden Eaglets of Nigeria were eliminated from the 2019 FIFA Under-17 World Cup in Brazil after going down to a 3-1 defeat to the Netherlands in the round of 16 in Ghana early Wednesday morning. Hazen opened scoring for the Netherlands in the 4th minute, but the lead lasted only 8 minutes before Olusegun equalized for the Golden Eaglets following a superb pass from Akekumi Amoro.
And at the other end, Olusegun with a fantastic response.
The Netherlands, however, regained the lead in the 15th minute, and Manu Garba Boys also considered a penalty 12 minutes from time when Ferdinand Ikena handed the ball inside the box. Hazen stepped up to take the penalty for his hat-trick.
Up for the Netherlands and complete his hat-trick and provide more Dutch delight. 5 times champions, Nigeria are out of the Under-17 World Cup.
Straight to tennis, Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer have been drawn in the same group at the ATP Finals tournament, which starts on Sunday at the London's O2 Arena. 5-time winner Djokovic and 6-time winner Federer are drawn alongside Dominic Thiem and Matteo Berrettini. World number 1, Rafael Nadal, is in a group with Daniel Medvedev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and Alessandro Zverev.
Well, and that's all we have time for on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for watching, and please return again tomorrow. I will bring you a fresh package. My name is Kieran Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Do have another day ahead of you.